Okay, hello and welcome. If you're watching this video, it means that you've just purchased the Painted Nature brush set. So I want to start off by saying thank you so much for being a customer and for supporting my business. Now let's dive into how to use your brushes. First things first, this brush set comes with 5 paper textures and 5 color palettes. To insert a paper texture, you're going to come up to your actions panel and click Insert a File. From here, you're going to locate the Painted Nature folder and you're going to select the Paper Textures folder to open up your options. From here, you can just select one of these and tap it and it'll import it onto the canvas. From here, you want to make sure that you adjust this image to cover your entire canvas. Now, it's a little hard to see the texture with the camera, but in person, I can tell you it is a very rich texture. Anyways, once you're happy with the orientation of your paper texture, you're going to come up to your actions panel and click the N beside the layer. Then you can select linear burn, color burn, or multiply. This is going to be based off personal preference, so you can kind of like see what the image looks like after you're done painting it and then sort of compare these 3 and you can choose from there. But personally, I always choose linear burn because it is just my favorite. So we're going to select linear burn. I'm also going to change the background color here just so you can really get an idea of how this texture looks. So you can see that it really is going to make your artwork look like it's done on paper. And now the key here is that this paper texture layer needs to stay as the topmost layer. So everything that you draw needs to go underneath this paper texture, and that's what's going to give it the effect of, you know, being drawn directly on the paper. Okay. Now to import the brushes and the color palettes is a little bit different. For this, we're going to open up our files. We're going to locate the Painted Nature folder, and this time we will just simply locate that brush set, and then we're just going to simply tap it once, and it'll import directly into Procreate, and you can see there it is right there. Next, for the color palettes, it's the exact same thing. We're going to open up the color palettes, we're going to tap one, and then we're going to open up our palettes, and you'll see that there it is imported at the bottom. Okay. Let's dive into how to use these brushes. And also, I'm gonna just make my background color gray so that you can see what I'm doing. So the first brush in this brush pack is the basic outline brush. Now, this is a very simple brush that should be used for outlining things. It's pressure sensitive, so the harder you press down, the bigger the line's gonna be, and the lighter you press, the smaller. You can see that it's gonna also end in a little bit of a point. This is a great brush for just creating like the basic shapes of your design before you add details. So let's say I was gonna draw in something like a tree trunk. So I might use this brush to first fill in the shape, and then I could create a clipping mask on top of that, and then go in with the other brushes from the pack to add in the detail, like so. So it's basically just like the first brush in your toolkit and one that you will likely use all the time. Okay, the next brush is the flat gouache brush. This is a very painterly brush that I think is just so gorgeous. Let me show you what it looks like. So this is a square shaped brush that's also pressure sensitive. So the harder you press down, the more opaque it is, and the lighter you press it, the lighter and more translucent it's going to get. So let's just see that again. You can press down hard for an opaque look and light for a really light glaze. The tip of this brush rotates based on the direction of your pencil. So I like this feature a lot when I have like square brushes because the direction matters. Like if I want it to be vertical or diagonal, I know that I can just tilt my pencil. Now, if you can't see the tip of your brush like I can here, you can simply come up to your actions panel, click preferences, and toggle on brush cursor, and that way you'll be able to see it. So this is a great brush for adding detail, for coloring in, for blocking in the first few colors of your design. Very much just one of the versatile brushes in the pack. You'll also see that the way this pack is split up is that your first few brushes are your most versatile. These are ones that don't have like a super specific use. They're meant to just be paintbrushes that you can use to build the foundations of your artwork. It also has like a little bit of a drying look with the lighter that you press it. Next, we have the distant brush. So this is also a versatile brush, and it kind of acts like a watercolor or gouache brush. So the lighter you press with this pencil, the more like blending you're going to get. So I can press hard to lay in the color and then lighten up the pressure of my pencil to create this soft like watercolor blend. So this is great for stuff in the background of your piece, like when you're trying to get a soft misty look, or it's great for adding in, you know, a soft blendable type of detail. This brush really just kind of builds on itself. So you can just work up the color and the value, and you can create these really soft, glowy paints with them. So it's a really lovely brush. Next is the Speckled and Creamy brush. You might recognize this from my gouache pack, and I threw it in here because I use this brush all the time when I'm painting landscapes, all the time. This is another pressure sensitive brush where the blending is controlled by the amount of pressure you're using. So I press down hard to lay in the pigment, then I lighten up the pressure of my pencil to create this textured blend. So you can see this really gives you the look of like paint on canvas. It's like a little bit kind of speckled like that. To blend two colors together, you can lighten up the pressure of your pencil and it will help you create this like seamless blend. So another really, really lovely and versatile brush. Highly recommend this one, and I'm going to be using this a lot in my tutorials. This brush, the direction can also be controlled by the direction of your stylus when you tilt it. Next is the textured shading brush. So this is like exactly what it sounds like. It's a brush used for shading in, coloring in shapes. So let's say I have like a big circle here, and I want to color it in. I'll use the textured shading brush, and I can select a color, and then I can use this to add some detail to it. That looks really, really hand painted and lovely. Now this brush is also pressure sensitive. So the harder you press, you get a super opaque look. And then when you press down lightly, you get a much more textured, much more translucent appearance. So let's just show you what this looks like. So if I was using white on this section and coloring it in really lightly here, you can see that I can just keep building up the texture by just lightly running my brush over itself. So it's not really a blendable brush. It's meant so you can see some of these brush strokes. So if you're going for more painterly or like watercolor-like style to your piece and you want something more textured, this is going to be your go-to brush. So yeah, it's a really nice one. I'm just in love with this brush pack. Okay, next brush. The Misti brush. So this is a great brush for soft detail. So it kind of acts like a sponge on water, and this is very flowy and blendable. So it's pretty similar to that distant brush, but it's much more rough. But both of them are kind of like watercolor-like brushes. So you'll press down hard to lay in the color, not like slamming your pencil, but you press down to lay in the color. And then while running my brush in circles, I'll lighten up the pressure to create this soft blending of the color. You can also, blend colors together by doing that same method. So if you press on hard, they won't blend, but the lighter you press, the more they'll kind of flow into each other until you have this soft gradient. Another great brush for adding in shading and detail, especially if you're going for something on the softer side. So you can create like a nice soft ombre with this brush. Okay, next brush is the high texture brush. So now we start to get into brushes with a little bit more specific uses. These two are still very versatile, don't get me wrong, but these are more for adding detail, while these are for building the foundations. Okay, so let's start with the high texture brush. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It is a brush with some very high texture, and the texture specifically looks like acrylic paint, kind of like a palette knife, honestly. When you press down hard with this brush, you get a more opaque line, and when you press down lightly, you get a very splotchy, thinner, and more translucent line. So when I'm using this brush, I'll add color and just kind of press down harder where I want it to be more opaque, and then I'll kind of just switch back and forth, adding that lighter color. This is a really great brush for adding texture to tree bark. So I'm again just gonna show you what this would look like if I was gonna draw it on a tree. So let's say I had a little tree trunk. So if I drew in a tree trunk here, I could create a clipping mask over these different layers and then go in with the texture, with the high texture brush to add in this tree bark detail. So I could take a darker color than the base and just run my brush lightly back and forth over the tree to create this tree bark, painted tree bark effect. So I'm just really lightly running my brush over these sections. Then I can take a color that I want to use as the highlight and run that over it as well. And I can take a color that I want to use as a shadow and run that along it as well. And then you can see you just get this absolutely beautiful tree bark looking brush, and it's just very, very lovely. And there you go. Now you've got this gorgeous little painted tree trunk. Obviously this looks kind of weird because I just did it super quick, but in future tutorials that I'll be posting on my social media and on my Patreon, we're gonna get into some really beautiful looking trees that we're gonna make with this brush. All right, next is the muddy brush, another very high textured brush that is perfect for things like tree trunks, terrain, rocks, anything that you need extreme texture with. For this brush, when you press down, you get this thick, opaque textured line. When you press down lightly, you get a much thinner and more sparse texture. So to use this brush, like if I was gonna color in the ground or a rock or something, so let's say I've got a path here. So I'd start by like filling in that base color, create a clipping mask, and then go in with a lighter or darker color using that muddy brush. And I would just run that over the foreground, lower the size as you get farther away. Then I'll go in with an even lighter or darker color. And now you've got this super textured ground. So again, really great for rocks, terrain, anything that you want this natural painted texture from. And then also, I know this looks like a little weird as the ground, but in a real tutorial, it'll look much more natural. It's just trying to show you guys like a quick way to use it. Next is the soft clouds brush. So for this, I'm gonna go ahead and just turn my background blue and show you guys how I would use this brush to draw clouds. So this is another pressure sensitive brush. Who is surprised? Now, with this brush, you're not gonna just like draw a single line like this or it's gonna look crazy. You wanna use this brush by running your pencil in circles. So, I will put the brush on the screen and run it in little circles to create the shape. Now, with this brush, when you lay in the initial color, you can make it super opaque by pressing down hard and running your brush in circles. The lighter you press it, the more blending you'll have until it looks like a little cotton ball. So, I'll use like medium pressure, run my brush in a circle to create this first circle, and then I'll just keep adding little cotton balls till I have created the shape of the cloud that I want. Then I'll lift my pencil and make my next cloud. You can see that it builds on top of itself. So on areas where I add it, it's gonna be more opaque when I add it on top of itself, if that makes sense. Once I have the shape of the cloud and I'm happy with it, I will then run my brush, make it a little bit smaller, and just run it over those same sections and add in tinier little circles. And then you'll just keep repeating this until you are happy with your clouds. You can change the brush size as you go. You can add in more on this side. Because right now, like I usually keep the brightest colors like towards the light source, but you don't always have to do that. If you want, you know, just depends on where your light source is coming from. So it's not always gonna be just all to one side like this. But yeah, so that's how you'll build the structure of your clouds here. And then you just get this really adorable painted cloud look. So this is great, you know, if you're going for like a softer, cloudy style. All right, our next brush is also for clouds. This is the Pastel Clouds brush. So it's a very different brush, but we're gonna use a similar technique. For this brush, when you press down hard, you get a very, very thick painted line. When you press down lightly, you get a thin textured line. Well, for this brush, we're gonna start by running our brush in circles to draw in the shape of the cloud. Then we'll lower the brush size and repeat, simply building on what we did. And also, you don't have to stick to circles on this one. You can just run your brush sideways, depending on what style of clouds you are going for. So, we're gonna build up those cloudy shapes. And we'll just keep adding to the cloud. And I'm just using the lightest pressure here to create this look. And this is gonna create a more, you know, high textured, painterly type of cloud rather than like a cutesy cloud. So just another option for you. All right, the next brush is the Rainforest brush. This is a really cool one. So for this brush, I'm gonna select a dark green color. Now, this brush is gonna create a look of rainforests in the distance, like the tops of the trees. So I will use usually a darker color for this. When you press on hard, you'll get a more opaque treetop. Then when you run it lightly over itself, you'll be able to create a little mistiness on the bottom right here. You just want to make sure that you're pressing really lightly here so that these lines like don't become too harsh. You can always take your smudge tool and go back in with something like the Misti brush to further soften up that base there, like so. Now, when I'm using this brush, you can use it left to right to draw treetops like that, but I think it looks the most realistic when you go at a diagonal like this, because you can kind of cut back and forth. And I'll just run the brush over itself, and again, run it lightly over the bottom, and then go in with the Misti brush to soften those bottom sections up and create a really lovely mist. And then you've got some rainforest treetops. Let's just see that again going from the other side. I'm just gonna drag my pencil here. And then use the Misti brush to soften it. Okay, and now let's move on. Our next brush is the stars brush. So let's say that you have a black background or a dark blue background. The stars brush is just a way that you can add in some different stars. So you can use it like a brush to create a bunch together, or you can just simply tap it like a stamp to just create a few. Now, if you want like a glowy look with this, you can tap your stars. So we've got a bunch of stars here. Then you can duplicate the layer, then select the bottom layer and choose Adjustments, Gaussian Blur, and drag your pencil to the right to create a little glow. So I'll show you what that looks like close up. Gaussian Blur, and it just creates this little halo around it. And then you can even take your basic outline brush and then make some of them have like a little, you know, like that. Ta-da! So that's a pretty basic brush. All right, the next brush is our stones brush. So this is similar to the stars. It's kind of like a little bit of a stamp. So you can just drag that horizontally. I wouldn't recommend dragging it up and down like this. I would drag it horizontally, and then you'll have a bunch of little stones. The lighter you press, the smaller the stones. So you press down hard for the bigger ones and then lighter for them to get smaller. Next are the leaves brushes. So these are all going to work very similarly. So let's start off with the blooming leaves brush. When you press down hard, you get a darker effect, a little bit more opaque of leaves. Then when you lighten the pressure, you get a much more translucent leaf. So for this, I would start by selecting my darkest color, make your shape. You can even duplicate this layer if you want it to be really opaque. Then create a new layer, create a clipping mask, and then use lighter colors to add in the rest of your detail. So I'll just use a slightly lighter color each time, and then just stay towards the light source. So I'm concentrating all my lightest colors towards the top left, and then you've got this super realistic little bushel of leaves. The same thing is going to apply to the other brushes. So next is the bushy brush. This one is a bit more compact, so you get a much more opaque look to this one. So this is great for like bushes in the distance and things like that. And then when you press down lightly with this one, you get sort of a much more opaque effect. So again, press down hard to lay in the color, and then lighter to show more texture and get a more translucent look. For this, same deal. Start off with my shape. Either use a clipping mask or just, add to it, or alpha lock, either one. And then add lighter colors, staying towards the light source as I go. All right, next is the autumn leaves brush. This is just another variation of brushes you can use. This one's one of my favorites. So again, like lighter pressure means way more translucent. Harder pressure means bigger leaves and more opaque. So start off with your shape, add the lighter colors, and boom. And then the rest of the leaves work the same way. So your dense cover is gonna be more compacted, great for hedges, bushes, treetops, anything like that. Works the same as the other bushes. Then you've got your aspen, which has little aspen leaves on it. This one looks also a little bit more watercolor. So if you're painting a watercolor, landscape, this is gonna be a great option for you for your treetops. So that's how this one looks. It's also a great one for doing any sort of ivy. Next is the bushes and leaves brush, also in my gouache pack. This is another one I've just used time and time again. It is a great option for messy leaves. So yeah, just slightly increasing the colors. That's how this one looks. Your stylized leaves are for leaves, but you can also use this to add texture to something like your ground or terrain or anything like that. So this is pretty texture forward, so it works a little bit differently than the other leaves. For this one, I would maybe use it on top of something else. So like if you use the bushy one, and then you add in your colors here. You could then go in with the stylized leaves brush, then add a clipping mask, use a blend mode to add in some color, and then draw in the leaves to create this unified texture. You know what, I gotta increase the maximum size of that one. Okay, next is the blades brush. So we're gonna get into these grass brushes. The blades brush is for drawing a single blade of grass. So you can go down to up or up to down, but you want to use light pressure towards where you want a light tip. So pressing down hard will give you a blunt tip. So you want to press down and then use really light pressure and flick your wrist to create these other blades. And that's how that one works. Next is the straight grass brush. So this brush will be used for painting grass. And this is also pressure sensitive. So the harder you press down, the bigger of a line you get. The lighter you press down, the more compacted and smaller of a line. So ideally, you want to press down in the foreground and then lighten up the pressure as you get towards the background. So for this brush, I might start off by drawing in the edge and then color it in close together to fill in the rest, so that I'm just focusing most of that bladey texture towards the perimeter of that grass. And then I can build more colors over that by adding a clipping mask and adding in some color. Like so. The next grass brush is the soft grass brush. So this is your most versatile grass brush, and this has some cool features. So when you press down with it, you get this nice bladed look, perfect for, hillsides or anything like that. And then light pressure creates more of a blended look. So I could start by adding in the perimeter and then lightening up the pressure of my pencil as I get towards the bottom of that grassy section so that it blends in with the rest of the piece. Likewise, I can add detail to it with really light pressure so that I can color in this grass without losing that perimeter that we did up top that makes it look so realistic. Then we can add lighter colors and continue to build that detail. And you will end up with something like this. Now I like to use these two brushes together. So I'll start off by creating the foundation of the grass with the soft grass brush, and then I'll add in the foreground some actual blades of grass. Like that. And I can even add in some little bushels throughout. Next is the Lush grass brush. So this works similar to the Rainforest brush, where it's like a little bit of a stamp, but you want to like use light pressure to create this soft blended bottom. And then you can go in with the Misti brush to further soften up and blend out that base. Like this. So again, you'll press down harder to create a larger and more opaque grass. And then using light pressure will create this more translucent effect. So I will start off by drawing in the grass and then lighten it up. And with this one, you really want to move your brush side to side because this looks kind of crazy if you do it like that. So this is more of like a perimeter, you know, of an edge type of brush. Great for like a riverside or a pond or anything like that. Next, our last brush is the pom-pom brush. So this is great for a very, high texture design. So something like an illustration or like a, watercolor type of style, this would really suit that. So it works pretty similarly to the leaves brushes. So you will press down hard and run your brush in circles to create your shape. And then you can use lighter colors to build up these little bushes. Like so. Okay, well that concludes our Painted Nature brushes. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for your order. And if you need anything along the way, let me know. And make sure you check out my Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, if you want tutorials using these brushes, because I post them all the time. And then also check out my Patreon. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.